Hello, welcome to God's Junk Drawer. I'm Cody, this is Bowser, and there's Zoe sleeping as usual. For our first project here, we're going to be doing something really exciting. We're going to be putting a DC to DC charger into the Subaru Outback. This will make it so I have a rolling power station, have electricity at all times. I live in Minnesota, and it'll be getting cold. Coming up pretty soon here, and it's cold pretty much 2/3 of the time. So having some heat at times where I might need to leave the car, and I can leave Bowser and Zoe in the vehicle and know that they're safe and they have heat and electricity, as well as just regular old camping, having a fan going or being able to cook. Or I'm a coffee lover, so having coffee in the morning is pretty crucial, and just having ease to do that will be nice. So we'll walk through the system here. I've decided to go with Renogy for everything in my system. The first piece is going to be this DC to DC charger, which is going to take a charge from the starter battery, the alternator, and then transfer it into our house auxiliary battery. This charger also has solar panel input, so I can take both the alternator charge and the solar panel charge. Next we have the battery. This battery is a mini core, and it's a self-heating battery. So my requirements for the battery were for cold weather, essentially, because these lithium iron phosphate batteries, they only work down to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and then they just stop working. A lot of the batteries, and again, you're gonna have to look into how people advertise their things, because a lot of them say that they have heating elements and stuff like that, but what that means typically is that it allows it to take a charge out of it down to a certain temperature, but it doesn't actually function or allow you to use the battery in your whole system. Now this battery, it actually has a self-heating mechanism. I don't know, this one actually has a self-heating mechanism, so it heats itself, and I think it was negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit this can go down to. So I'm going to be able to use this battery year-round, whether it's cold or not. So for my first one, I just have a 100 amp hour battery. It's a 12.8 volt current, so 1,280 watt hours, 1,200 watt hours. Now on to the very, very exciting part, what we are going to use this whole system for. So this is our inverter. This thing is, that's the beast of the system. I went with a 2,000 watt inverter. So that means that I could have a 2,000 watt pull at 124 volts. So your standard house outlets, 2,000 watts all at once. Of course, you always want to, with everything when you're talking electricity, you always want to round that down. So I'm going to say I'm only using 1,500, whatever. I'm extra safe with my stuff, and this is going to be plenty for what I need. Honestly, I bet you I could have gone with the 1,000 watt system for what I'm going to use it for, but I would rather have this, feel safe, and know that it's going to cover absolutely everything I need. On here, like I said, it has your kind of standard house stuff. So 3 electric outlets, USB for your tablet or your phone. It does have direct wire. I'm not going to get into this direct wiring stuff right now. And then it does have a hardwired remote, which I don't think I will plan on using, because again, mine is going in a car, but this is meant for an RV setup, or say you have one of those big cargo vans and your setup is in the back of your vehicle, and then you might want this to run up to your dashboard. So whether I use this or not, we'll see, but it's just RJ11, RJ45, whatever plug there. Let's talk about the capacity of this charger. So I went with a 30 amp model. When you're picking out your charger, you're going to want to look up your alternator. So I have a 2022 Subaru Outback. So Subaru Outback, available amperage in the alternator, and that's going to give you how much you had. I think I had something like 140 amps available, and that doesn't mean that you should be using 140 amps or whatever your vehicle has, because anything you do is putting a strain on that alternator, and you don't want to be maxing that out and overheating your alternator. So basically what I'm going to say is we're going to cut that in half. So if I had 140, I'm not going to use more than 70. So I could have easily gone with the 50 amp model, but again, I just, with being the first time doing this system, I'd rather go under power and then overpower and wreck something. So 30 amps is how we're going with, and I think this is going to be plenty for the power draw for what we need. And then I also, again, have the solar panel for when the vehicle is parked, so I'm not relying solely on the alternator for my system. All right, this fancy battery is going to represent our car battery. Obviously, this is not a car battery, but I'm not going to haul a 60-pound lead acid battery in here for a demonstration. So here's our car battery, and our car battery connects to our DC charger. So this will run from our hood all the way down through our doorway, into our electrical system, into the back seat where our DC charger will sit. One thing I didn't say up front is read your manuals. Always read your manuals. Before I bought any of this, I read all these manuals online cover to cover in the PDF, and then when I got them, I read them again. So make sure you read your manuals. When we talk about wiring is one of the most important things. You can't just plug in any old wire. The amount of current you have going through the system is very important. On one side, we have these giant beef cables. These are huge. I think these are 1/0s. And on our other side, we can have like these 4-gauge wires. So if we look at our manual here, our input cable, this is from our starter to our DC. If I'm in the 11 to 20 foot range, which I'm well within that, I think I was right around 14-ish, then we can go with 4-gauge or 6-gauge wire. Anytime it says to pick one, I always pick the thicker wire. So we went with 4-gauge from the starter down to our DC charger. And then from our DC charger to our battery, we could go with 4-gauge again, but actually our output, we're 0 to 10 feet. So it says 8 to 10 gauge wire. So of course we're going to go with 8-gauge. And that's because where my battery sits, so this is going to run all the way from the hood of the vehicle to the back seat basically, and then the battery on the other side is only going to be about a 3-foot run. So if we're 0 to 10 feet, we can go with 8 or 10 gauge. So we will go with 8-gauge for in between these. Now from our battery to our inverter, that's where we have the biggest amount of current going. So that's where we have these big beefy cables, and that's because we're going from a 12-volt output up to your kind of standard 120-watt output. So we're multiplying it by 10. So that's going to be a big change in our electricity there. Hence the very big cables, and these are always going to be a short run. Another thing that's important when protecting your system is to make sure we're using fuses. There's a bunch of different fuse options, A&L, direct line type things. I like the circuit breakers because this makes it extra safe when I'm installing, to make sure I have no electricity running through while I wire, and then I can get it set when I feel I have everything in place. The pull from this, it's a 30 amp charger, and I would assume a 40 amp would cover it, but again, reading the manual, I need to put a 50 amp from the alternator to the charger, and then a 40 will work fine from the charger to the battery. And again, on this side we're going beef mode, so we have a big old 250 amp one. Okay, so we're gonna have to run the cable up through the firewall here. Let's see, get a better light. Alright, so what we're gonna be doing is taking our paneling off here, and then up through here is the firewall connection. There's a hole, and for mine it will go through the door here, and the existing wire goes up. Let's look at the wiring through the panel here. It's going to be different based on whatever you have. I think most of these are going to just be pull-up clip type of things though, so let's check that out. Alright, clip, clip, clip. So I've zip tied the wiring just all the way through using the existing channels and everything that is on here. Here's the firewall connection port. It has a pop-up here. Alright, so now that we have this all taken apart, here is our wires that we added going through our existing firewall. Blessing break! Today's blessing break is nature. I always like to take at least a moment or two a day to pause and just sit and not think and be with nature. Even if that means just going to the back of my yard and staring up at some trees. Have everything wired up, just placed, soft placed right now, so nothing's going to stay permanent. This charger will end up on the wall probably here with the battery right underneath it, and then the inverter will probably go right here, kind of where the camera is sitting on the little mid lump seat thing. But anyways, got this all wired up. This is the positive wire coming out of the DC charger to the battery. One thing I did is I replaced the fuse here. These fuses are actual garbage, so you might come across these red kind of looking style fuses for really cheap. These are an absolute waste of money. This one, when I got a few more things, I did just order from Renogy. So it's a Sun Tree, which I'm not familiar with, but very nice clean connection. So I'm happy with switching to these. I should have got these from the start. With everything wired, we have our battery again, blue for lithium, and yellow's just saying, yep, I see there's a battery here. There's not very much charge in it. So I'm gonna go start the car, and then we will see this alternator light pop on after 10 seconds of charge. And any second now we'll see that alternator light. Isn't that beautiful? So we have 13.2 going to the battery right now. So we have 13.9 at the charger. And 13.2 at the battery. So yep, a little bit of voltage loss there. This wire actually gets shortened up when I do the mounting and everything. I have a little bit of excess wire, so that is looking good. Now the real thing will be when I drive with the smart alternator. When I hit, I think like 30 miles an hour is when that voltage is changing for me. So I will drive, and hopefully this camera won't fall over. Okay, wonderful. Looks like you had a good shot of the battery. Oh, beautiful. That is what I like to see. I took it above 40, been driving for a few minutes, and I see the alternator is still on. The alternator light is still on. So this is great. Been driving around for 15 minutes, different speeds, everything's looking good. Our charger light is still on. I'm going to turn this light off. I don't know, maybe that works better. So our charger light is on, and I'm going to go turn the vehicle off, and then we'll see that pop off. So beautiful. As soon as we see the engine cut off, we do see that our alternator light is now off, still indicating our battery. It's yellow because obviously we didn't get a full charge just driving around for a bit. Everything looks wonderful here. You can see the wire coming out. So this is just stuck directly into where that prong is, and then I just use the existing fuse box to wire it. And then just underneath right here, and then I just use the existing panel where I have the rest of my wires going. So here's a look at the cab fuse box where I was talking about putting an inline fuse adapter. These work great where you can just plug them right into the slot that's existing. So for on this one, I'm replacing a 7.5 amp fuse and then basically just putting in another one. So any of these 7 amp fuses in here, I would just be putting one of these in line. So this is where I would start with the simple solution of doing this type of thing. And on these fuses, they have little dots, so you don't actually have to take them out. So some of these are going to have readings right now, and you don't want to use the ones that have readings right now, because what that means is that electricity is constantly pulling, and then even though the vehicle's turned off right now, it's going to keep pulling from your starter battery, and then it could eventually kill it. So you want it to, when you turn your vehicle on, to only be pulling an electrical voltage at that point, and as soon as you shut the vehicle off, it goes away. So it's going to be an ignition fuse or one labeled ACC. Some of them are labeled DCDC for that actual DCDC, which will be like your car lighter is always going to be that one. But yeah, so it's going to be a little bit different, and you're going to maybe have to play around with it the same way I did. But I would say start here, and then if this isn't working for you, then go up to the actual starter, direct starter relay, and then a little bit more wiring through the firewall. Everything installed for the DC to DC charger in the Subaru Outback, so looking really good. Some things we're going to add to that. The main thing next is solar. So that will be the next video, is adding solar to this and completing our setup. So that way we can get power at all time. From the testing I've done on the solar panel, it works wonderfully. I put it in full shade and it's getting all the voltage it says it's supposed to in optimal conditions. So it should perform quite well. And then we'll be able to do some testing, see how long we can run some current for like a fan overnight. I've already done that without the solar. But just being able to do some tests. It's always fun to see what the max out for the system is in the current state with just 1,000 24 amp watt hour battery. Main thing I'd mentioned before is I swapped these fuses out. So I got a good fuse. Get a good fuse, like a marine grade fuse. This one I just ended up getting from Renogy when I reordered a few things to add to the system as well. So we're going to add a controller, and they have a Bluetooth module, so they'll be really nice for tracking the system from my phone. So we'll see how that goes. That'll all be added in with the solar. So see you on the next one. It'll be fun. Ready to rock, Bowser? All right, let's do it. Disclaimer!